So I'm here to share my passion about the natural world and how I love it and want to share it to all the people around here. I was born and raised in Switzerland. As a young child, I was always mesmerized by the beauty in nature. Throughout my life, I pursued that nurturing of the natural world. A couple of years ago, I was privileged to join a 2-year program with the Biomimicry Institute. It was an incredible journey, a very transforming journey for me. It helped me reconnect with myself, but also with the natural world. It made some amazing friendship along the way. So let's start with a simple question. What is nature? Most people often talk about nature or make reference to nature. Often it's something that is not human. We often talk about going to nature, studying nature, enjoying nature. Like if there was a different world between us and the natural world. Like if there was a boundary that separates us from the natural world. The reality is that 10,000 years ago, this is the view that you had every day. When we were roaming the earth and we were in Africa, nature was the only thing we had. We were in deep connection with it. We understood it. We were close linked to it. However, over the last few centuries, we've lost that connection and end up living in a world that looks like this. It's very uniform. It's very defined. There are specific boundaries, limitations. A whole economic model, it's also changed. We live on a linear production model, and I'm sure all of you are very familiar with it. It involves extraction, productions, distributions, consumptions, and obviously disposal. And I refer as heat, beat, and treat. And let me give you an example of that. Every year, we consume roughly 50 billion plastic bottles a year. Roughly 12 billion are recycled. So that means every year we have to make more plastic so we can continue consuming this mode of consumption. We all know very well that we're running out of minerals, timber, and water. Also, the way we generate power, we use fossil fuel, which has huge impact on the planet, but also on the entire ecosystems. And the waste stream, as I mentioned, is something that is prevalent everywhere. We know there is a large amount of waste in the ocean, of plastic waste, but we also know that we have waste all over the earth. Not only is it affecting us, affecting the public health of all of us, but it's also affecting all the other species on this planet. So at the end, we are nature. We're not separate from nature. We just happen to be one of the many other species on this planet. We're subject to the same operating conditions, the same boundaries, the same limitations. And we have to learn from the other species that have been here before us. And let me give you a perspective on that. If I was to compress the entire Earth history into 1 year, it will look like this. On January 1st, about 4 billion a year, that's when Earth was formed. February 25th, life appears about 3.8 billion years ago. On the 28th, life figured out that photosynthesis was the best way to harvest the sun energy. And from February until August, not a whole lot happened until multicellular life appeared. And then, really, everything that we know today came about. The fungi, the fish, the plants, the insect, and obviously, in December, all the others, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, flowers, and birds. We, on the other hand, humans, if we were going to take the entire human history, we basically would have taken place the last half hour of the last day. And then here's the last key element, the modern civilization, which is industrial revolutions. It will actually have happened only 2 seconds ago. So what does it tell us? We're a very young species, and we ought to have some humility and respect for all the elders that have been on this planet before us. As I said, there's 3.8 million years of evolutions. It's a constant reinventing of itself. What you see outside is the best of the best. It's the one that were able to survive, the ones who came up with the right recipe in order to survive and thrive on this planet. The chemistry also in nature is very different than our own chemistry. It's very basic. It uses only a few elements. They use roughly 5 polymers, like keratin, like your hair and your nail. On the other hand, we humans use over 300 different polymers. Every time we want to make a new plastic, we make a new polymer. And also in nature, as you probably know, everything is recycled. There's no waste. All these compounds eventually break down to be renewed again and again. I love this quote from Janine Benyus, which is really the mother behind the biomimicry movement. Life creates conditions conducive to life. It's a very profound statement. What it really means, it's life creates more life. Think about our own way. Humans, often, even though we're great at what we do, we often diminish the capacity of the earth to regenerate itself over time. So can we learn from nature to be able to do more life? I believe we can. And also, nature is interconnected and interdependent. Nothing lives in nature on its own. Nothing in nature can live and survive on its own. It's all connected. If you go outside and see a bunch of trees, they're not separate from one another. The root system is connected. They share water, they share nutrients, they share information. And by the way, we humans are exactly the same. Our entire civilization is based on trust and on community building. So let me take you to 3 models of biomimicry: the form, process, and system. Form. Nature uses form. In this case, the honeybee. The challenge for the honeybee is to create the largest amount of living space with the least amount of material. This is what the honeybee figure out. This is the shape that is ideal for their need. So in this case, it fits the form to the function, which is very different to us. We tend to design things for one purpose only. Not only it provides living space for its young, but it's also protected against the outdoor and the environmental elements. Process. You've probably all seen coral reef, beautiful structures that are underwater. They've been around for 450 million years. They're made of calcium carbonate. And really, what is calcium carbonate? Actually, it's carbonate and carbon dioxide, which happens to be abundant and freely available in the ocean. So the coral reef, basically using low energy process and no waste, is able to build a structure that is long-lasting. Let me give you a perspective on humans. We use concrete in the built environment, very prevalent. In order to make concrete, we have to mine limestone at the rate of 39 billion tons a year. And then we have to cook it at a very high temperature to make it reactive so that calcium carbonate is reactive to water. And by the way, this process generates 6% of all CO2 emission around the world. So can we learn something from the coral reef? I think we can. System. System is quite similar to where we are. A system in nature is a complex ecological system that requires the structure and provide elements for a number of organisms. In this case of the wetland, which we have a few along the coast, are essential to the life of many other species. They exchange resources, nutrients, and information. Wetlands also act as a boundary between 2 bodies of waters as a filtration device. And wetlands also act as a buffer against storm surge. Human system is very similar. We live in a city. A city is a system. Very complex, that has all kinds of in and out. There's things that we use and things that we consume and things that are being reused. So here's an example of a human system based on nature's design. It's actually called an eco-district, and it's called the Cannenberg project in Denmark. And here again, this is an industrial park where you have different entities who have byproduct, in this case waste. In order to be part of that industrial park, you have to be able to take on someone else's waste to make it into something else. Here's an example. So at the center, you have a power plant, a 1,500 megawatt power plant. The power plant has excess heat. That heat is piped to nearby homes. It also has waste heat in the making of energy, in this case electricity, which is funneled to a fish farm. And the fish farm creates sludge. The sludge is a great input in making fertilizers. The power plant also has excess amount of steam in the making of power. That steam is actually funneled to a company, in this case called Novo Nordisk, which is one of the biggest makers of insulin in the world. And in the making of insulin, the byproduct is enzyme, which again could be used in making fertilizers. And then the power plant has scrubbers, right? We try to prevent some of the particulates to get into the atmosphere. And one of those particulates is gypsum. And gypsum could be used in the making of drywall. And finally, there is fly ash, which could be also mixed in the making of cement. So here's a small example of a very complex system, industrial system, mimicking what nature does, a closed-loop system where everything gets reused and never wasted. So in order to take credit, in order to understand nature's genius, we as a species need to reconnect. When was the last time you spent time in nature? For some of you, maybe many times. For some of us, not much. But in order to connect with the natural world, we have to reconnect. In a way, we have to be that child. As I mentioned in my own story, when you were a young child, you probably were mesmerized, curious about the natural world. We need to revive that element in ourselves in order to connect with the natural world, in order to be able to observe and discover the genius in nature that could help us solve some of our biggest challenges. So here's a way to recap. Our own system is very linear. Nature is cyclical, as I mentioned. We use it's very homogeneous. Nature banks on diversity. We maximize resources. Nature's optimize, only use what it needs. We use that process of heat, beat, and treat, which is very energy intensive. Nature use low energy process, self-assembly models. We use the cheapest source. Nature use whatever is readily available around it. And we're very disposable. As you probably all know, nature recycles everything. Everything is biodegradable, could be used again and again. I love E.O. Wilson. I love his book. I'm a big fan of him. And I will tell you this. In my mind, every organism, from the microbial all the way to the largest mammal, have something unique that we can learn about them. They were able to thrive and survive on this planet. If they're able to thrive and survive, we shall learn from them and understand how they do it so that we can apply some of that knowledge to our own challenges. In the end, what I would like you to do is go out, maybe today or tomorrow, go out to your favorite nature place. Go take the time to reconnect with the natural world. Take the time to breathe, to touch, to feel, to experience what this incredible beauty, which is right out there for us to study and to enjoy. And remember, have some humility for our own elders that have been there before us. And once you find a quiet place to sit down, remember to quiet your cleverness and let the natural world speak to you. You'll be amazed what you can learn. Maybe you'll observe something unique that could help you with your biggest design challenge and help you solve something you never thought would be possible. Thank you.